Hi, this is E.T., and this man is likely known to you. In fact, that picture has become a meme, even before popularization of the word. It was seen in magazines, newspapers, even books, up to today, and now seen on the internet. It's been discussed and on occasion parodied in music and on film. The name of the man, Angelo Siciliano. Are you surprised? You know him probably as Charles Atlas, a nom de guerre that he adopted in 1922 after being recognized as the world's most perfectly developed man. Angelo was born 1892 in Acre, Italy. At the age of 10 in 1903, he accompanied his parents through Ellis Island and into New York City. His father, not impressed with the new country, hopped the next boat back home. So Angelo wrote of a less than happy childhood. He was roughed up by the local boys. He even had sand kicked in his face by a Coney Island lifeguard. This later would become part of the Atlas legend. But a metamorphosis occurred during Angelo's teens, when he transformed his body, and by implication his whole persona, through exercise, first using homemade weights and other apparatus, and finally utilizing a method that he developed of pressing the body's own muscles against each other, a system later identified as dynamic tension. That was coined by advertising executive and later Atlas's business partner, Charles Roman. Atlas wrote of his epiphany. He had watched a lion in a zoo stretch, and he thought, and I'm using his words, "Does this old gentleman, the lion, have any barbells, any exercisers?" And it came over me, he's been pitting one muscle against another. It would be this method, dynamic tension, that the fictionalized Mac would use in all those thousands of advertisements in the back pages of comic books and magazines from the early 1930s on. He would use them to wreak vengeance on the beach bully and to regain his girlfriend. And those ads, with the image of Angelo Siciliano on them, made him, Charles Atlas, one of the most recognizable and popular visages across the globe. He was an ideal representation of what the world thought the American middle class was and what the American middle class wished it could be. Charles Atlas was the living personification of not only physical perfection, but of the many wholesome values that he extolled, as were, to a lesser extent, the make-believe characters such as the comic book heroes and radio's Jack Armstrong, All-American Boy. In business, as in life generally, timing is everything, and the stars aligned perfectly for Angelo to become Atlas. By the 1920s, American culture was in flux caused by a series of world catastrophes, such as World War I, then a post-war mood of disillusionment, think of that lost generation. Then there was the communist revolution in Russia, there was the worldwide flu epidemic, and even before all of that, there was a population shift from the farm with its healthy outdoor challenges and independent yeoman values to the cities that were cramped and compartmentalized and that extolled different values that would manifest later, decades later, by the 1950s and be written about as other-directed behavior. Also, due to a booming, if not necessarily sound economy, the arts flourished, including sculpturing, with well-endowed patrons such as Gertrude Vanderbilt Whitney, whose first impression of Atlas was, these are her words, he's a knockout. Vanderbilt Whitney's endorsement resulted in many gigs for Charles Atlas, where he would be carved or molded into George Washington. You can see that in Washington Park Square. Alexander Hamilton in the U.S. Capitol, or Civic Virtue in the Queensboro Hall, or Dawn of Glory in Prospect Park. These earned him eventually $100 per sitting. Now, $100 in 1923 money would be roughly $1,500 today. And by the way, a 1923 new Model T Ford cost about $360. Besides the anomie resulting from urban life, other marvels of timing were new health and fitness magazines, such as Physical Culture, published by Bernard McFadden. And there was the explosion of advertising and the psychological studies that underlay it. Advertising seen in newspapers, magazines, books, on film, and on radio, which began broadcasting in 1921. All of these shifts in the way uprooted Americans received information, were more influenced by propaganda, struggled to fit into the niche of city life, or worked at less strenuous jobs, assumed critical importance after the economic crash of 1929 and the subsequent decade-long depression. Harvey Green, a professor of history at Northeastern University, observed in his book entitled Fit for America, Health, Fitness, and Sports in American Society, 1830 to 1840, when the Depression struck, a characteristic response in America was to blame ourselves. Atlas interpreted the desire to transform ourselves as a way of self-improvement. This desire to transform, I believe, continued through and after World War II into the 50s and forward, only they subdivided into subcategories of strength and fitness, which would be extolled by publisher Bob Hoffman, into physique, as envisioned by publisher Joe Weider, and then all of these, strength, fitness, and physique, taught by Charles Atlas. So what is Atlas's dynamic tension, and does it really work? Well, E.T., like so many boys coming of age in the late 1950s, had his own version of the beach bully to overcome. Here you see E.T. before, then at the beach. Okay, she caught me off guard. Now stay with me, see the results after E.T.'s dynamic tension transformation toward the end of this video. The dynamic tension system pits muscle against muscle, a form of isometrics, before that word was coined. For example, the triceps of one arm against the biceps of another, or arms together and under the legs pushing against the arms, and so on. It also included abdominal work. In fact, Atlas emphasized the core muscles long before most everyone else did. And there were other forms of conditioning too, as well as proper nutrition and rest. Assuming that a student was motivated and dedicated to all that Atlas preached, it did produce results, although some argued that it was not as effective as Atlas maintained. For instance, Bob Hoffman, in 1936, apparently feeling that he had lost customers to Atlas, wrote that Atlas's method of dynamic tension was, and I'm using Hoffman's words, dynamic hooey. Well, the issue was so big, so hot, that it went to the Federal Trade Commission, who ruled, and Hoffman lost. Also, there's some question whether or not Atlas might have supplemented his own system with barbells. But whatever, there were enough endorsements to show that many people believed that dynamic tension worked. including luminaries who were both students as well as supporters of the dynamic tension system, such as heavyweight champions Max Baer. You see him here with his son Max Jr., Jethro and the Beverly Hillbillies, Joe Louis, Jack Dempsey, and there are people outside of sports, such as England's King George VI. And then there was Mahatma Gandhi. He contacted Atlas about a program, and you can see why. All this suggests that the dynamic tension system does work. Although Atlas died in 1972, he was 79, his business continues from its New Jersey location, in particular over the internet, and is reported to be doing well. So did the system work for E.T.? Well, take a look. Okay. Who'd have guessed that dynamic tension would work for her too? This is E.T. Thank you for watching. Please hit the like or dislike button, share this video on social media, or just talk about it to friends. Thanks.